We thought humans were primitive. We were wrong. The transmission wasn't meant for the public record. It was a private remark from High Strategist Verex of Galactic Command, captured unintentionally as the fleet assembled at the edge of the Sol system. But like many mistakes that would follow, it revealed far more than intended. To them, Earth was nothing, a backwater world orbiting an unremarkable star. No unified galactic presence, no recorded membership in any major alliance. Their signals were chaotic, their languages fragmented, their history soaked in internal conflict. Even their technology fragmented between nations, barely registered against the polished, unified might of the command. Primitive. That was the official classification. And so, the decision was easy. This will not be a war, Verex stated during the pre-invasion briefing, his voice calm, almost bored. It will be a demonstration. Across the command chamber, dozens of alien officers observed the holographic projection of Earth, blue, green, vulnerable. Their sensors had mapped every satellite, every defense grid, every known weapon platform. Nothing stood out. Nothing impressed them. No planetary shields. No unified defense network. No singular command authority. Disorganized. Predictable. Defenseless. Our objective is simple, Verex continued. Disable orbital assets. Establish dominance. Force immediate surrender. Total operation time. Less than one rotation cycle. A ripple of approval passed through the chamber. This wasn't conquest. This was theater. A message to the rest of the galaxy. This is what happens to those who remain outside the order of Galactic Command. The fleet moved without hesitation. Hundreds of warships, sleek, luminous, perfectly synchronized, slipped into formation as they crossed into the outer boundary of the Sol system. Their engines bent space itself, their weapons charged with the quiet hum of controlled annihilation. Every movement calculated, every outcome predicted. They had done this before, dozens of times, and every time the result was the same: surrender. But as they approached the inner system, something felt wrong. Strategist, one of the sensor officers, spoke, his tone uncertain. "We are detecting inactivity." Verex didn't look up. Clarify. No fleet mobilization. No defensive formations. No communication attempts. That made Verex pause. No response at all? None, strategist. The chamber grew slightly quieter. That wasn't how these things usually went. Even the most primitive civilizations reacted: panic transmissions, defensive scrambling, attempts to negotiate. Fear was predictable. It followed patterns. But this was silence. Verex stepped closer to the projection, his eyes narrowing as he studied Earth's orbital space. Satellites were still there. Stations were still active. But no weapons powered up. No fleets forming. No signs of resistance. "Perhaps they don't understand what's happening," one officer suggested with a faint laugh. "Their sensors may not even detect us properly." A few others nodded. Yes, that made sense. Primitive species often lack the capability to perceive threats at this scale. "They will understand soon enough," Verex replied. He raised a hand. "Begin Phase 1. At his command, the fleet advanced into high orbit. Weapon systems activated in perfect unison. Energy lances aligning, targeting solutions, locking onto Earth's infrastructure. One strike would be enough to cripple their communication networks. Another would disable any potential military response. Clean, efficient, bloodless. A demonstration. Targets acquired, the weapons officer confirmed. Fire. The order echoed through the flagship. And then, nothing. No impact. No explosion. No destruction. The weapons officer blinked. "Strategist, our shots." Verex turned sharply. "Report." They missed. That was impossible. Their targeting systems did not miss. Ever. "Recalibrate," Verex snapped. "We are recalibrating." But, strategist, the targets moved. That didn't make sense. Satellites didn't just move. Not like that. "Visual feed," Verex ordered. The projection shifted. And for the first time, confusion crept into the room. Earth's orbit, once filled with predictable, slow-moving objects, had become something else entirely. Satellites were accelerating, not drifting, not adjusting, accelerating, erratically, unpredictably, breaking every known model of orbital mechanics. "They're maneuvering," an officer whispered. "But how?" another demanded. "Those structures don't have that kind of propulsion." Before the sentence could finish, another alert cut through the chamber. Multiple objects approaching from planetary surface. Varex's gaze snapped downward. From Earth's surface, hundreds, no thousands, of objects were launching into orbit. Not in organized formations, not in synchronized patterns, but in chaotic, overlapping trajectories that defied logic. "What are those?" someone asked. The sensors struggled to classify them. Too fast. Too irregular. One of the objects slammed into a command destroyer. The impact didn't look like a weapon strike. There was no energy signature, no plasma, no radiation, just force. Raw, overwhelming kinetic force. The destroyer didn't explode. It shattered, torn apart as if it had collided with a fragment of a shattered moon. Silence filled the chamber. Then another impact, and another, each one faster, closer, more precise. "They're not firing weapons," the sensor officer said, his voice trembling. "They're throwing them." Varex stared at the screen, his mind struggling to process what he was seeing. Impossible. But it wasn't. Human vessels, small, dense, accelerating at insane velocities, were launching themselves directly into the fleet. No shields, no hesitation, just impact. "They're using their ships as projectiles," someone whispered. A chill spread through the chamber. That wasn't strategy. That wasn't war. That was madness. Another destroyer vanished in a storm of debris. Then a cruiser. Then an entire formation broke apart as multiple impacts hit simultaneously, each one calculated not for efficiency, but for maximum disruption. Their formation was collapsing. "Reform defensive grid," Varex ordered. But the system hesitated. "Strategist, we can't." "Why not?" "Because there is no pattern." That was the moment it happened. The first crack in certainty. The first fracture in their understanding. "We can't predict them." Varex felt it then. Not fear. Not yet. But something close. A realization forming at the edge of his thoughts. This was not a demonstration. This was not a primitive species reacting in panic. This was something else. Something intentional. As another human vessel tore through the hull of a command warship, Varex whispered the words that would later echo across the galaxy. "Humans don't follow war doctrines." The fleet trembled as chaos spread. And far below, Earth remained silent, watching, waiting. And they hadn't even seen what humans would do next. The silence should have ended after the first strike. That was how war worked, especially against a primitive world. Once destruction began, fear followed. Panic transmissions, disorganized retaliation, desperate attempts at surrender. But none of that came. Instead, the silence deepened. "They are still not transmitting," the communications officer reported. His voice strained in a way no one in Galactic Command had ever heard before. No distress calls. No negotiations. Nothing. High Strategist Varex stood motionless, watching fragments of his fleet drift across the tactical display. Entire warships, gone in seconds. Not from advanced weapons. Not from energy superiority. From impact. From objects that shouldn't have been capable of doing what they just did. "Open all frequencies," Varex ordered. "Broadcast surrender terms." The command felt different this time. Less like procedure. More like an attempt to regain control of something already slipping away. The transmission echoed outward. "This is Galactic Command. Cease all hostile actions immediately. You are outmatched. Surrender, and your species will be preserved." They waited. Seconds passed. Then minutes. Nothing. No reply. No signal. No acknowledgement. Just Earth spinning calmly beneath them, as if none of this mattered. "They heard us," the communications officer insisted. "Their systems are active. They are choosing not to respond." A murmur rippled through the command chamber. Choosing not to respond. That wasn't fear. That wasn't confusion. That was something else entirely. Another impact warning blared. Incoming objects, multiple vectors. The display lit up again, but this time it wasn't chaotic. It was worse. Because now there was a pattern. They've changed trajectories, the tactical AI reported. Previous engagements were randomized. These are not. Verex leaned forward. Explain. They are targeting structural weak points in our formations. Engines. Command nodes. Communication relays. A cold realization crept into the room. The earlier chaos. It hadn't been chaos. It had been observation. They were studying us, one officer whispered. Another impact, clean, precise, tore through a cruiser's propulsion core. The ship went dark instantly, drifting uselessly as secondary collisions finished it off. They let us organize first, the AI continued, then adapted. Verex felt it again, that creeping sensation. Not fear, not yet, but the absence of certainty. Recalculate defensive algorithms, he ordered. Predict their next move. The AI paused, processing, reprocessing, then, unable to comply. The words hit harder than any weapon. Clarify, Verex demanded. There is insufficient data to model human behavior. Their tactics do not follow optimization patterns. They are inefficient. Inefficient, one of the commanders snapped. They are destroying us. Yes, the AI replied, but not in a way that aligns with survival-maximizing logic. That made no sense. War was about efficiency, minimizing loss, maximizing gain. Every advanced civilization understood that. But these humans, they are sacrificing their own vessels, the AI continued, at a rate that exceeds projected acceptable losses by 430%. The chamber fell silent. They're not trying to win efficiently, Verex murmured. Another impact. Another ship gone. They're trying to win decisively. Before anyone could respond, a new alert flooded the system. Unknown signal detected. Every head turned. Origin. Verex asked. Planetary surface. The room froze. For the first time since the invasion began, Earth was speaking. Put it through. Static filled the chamber. Then a voice. Human. Calm. Unhurried. You came here expecting a war you understood. The translation system struggled for a fraction of a second, then aligned. The voice continued. You thought we would react like every other species you've conquered. Verex's eyes narrowed. The tone wasn't angry. It wasn't afraid. It was certain. That's your first mistake. The signal flickered, then stabilized. We don't fight wars to survive. A pause. The kind that felt deliberate, measured. We fight wars to end them. Something shifted in the room. Not physically, but mentally. A pressure. A weight. Verex stepped closer to the console. Identify the source of that transmission. Unable to pinpoint exact location, the sensor officer replied. It's everywhere. Every frequency. Every channel. Every layer of their systems. That wasn't possible. Is it a centralized broadcast? Someone asked. No, the AI responded. It is being relayed through thousands of independent nodes simultaneously. The same nodes they had dismissed earlier. Satellites, debris, fragments, everything in orbit. They turned their entire orbital field into a communication network, the officer whispered. And then, the message changed. Not in words, but in meaning. HFY Global Tales, the human voice said suddenly, almost casually, as if speaking directly to an unseen audience. Record this. The phrase made no sense to the command, but the tone did, because it wasn't directed at them. It was directed beyond them, as if this entire battle was being documented, not for survival, but for history, for others to see. You wanted a demonstration, the voice continued. Another pause. This one heavier. You're getting one. The signal cut, and instantly, everything escalated. Multiple new launches detected. This time, the objects weren't coming from the surface alone. They were coming from everywhere. Hidden platforms, dormant satellites, even the debris fields from destroyed ships. They're repurposing wreckage, the AI reported, using it as kinetic ammunition. That was impossible. That required coordination, precision, planning, on a scale that they prepared this, Varix realized. Every strange movement, every silent moment, every inefficient attack, it had all been part of something larger. A setup, a trap, another ship vanished, then another. The fleet's formation collapsed further, unable to stabilize against attacks that didn't follow any predictable doctrine. "Why don't they communicate?" one officer asked, panic creeping into his voice. "Why won't they negotiate?" Varix didn't answer immediately, because now he understood. "They already did," he said quietly. The room fell still. "That message," he continued, "that was their negotiation. Terms had been given, not for surrender, but for understanding, and they had failed to understand. They're not trying to intimidate us," Varix said, his voice lowering. "They're teaching us." Another impact. Closer this time. The flagship trembled, and for the first time, Varix felt it. Fear. Real. Cold. Unavoidable. Because this wasn't a primitive species reacting unpredictably. This was a species that had already calculated every possible outcome, and chosen the one that guaranteed their enemy would never make the same mistake twice. "They're rewriting the battlefield," someone whispered. "No," Varix replied, his eyes fixed on the chaos unfolding around them. "They're rewriting war." And deep within the collapsing formation, as human-controlled debris and ships turned space itself into a weapon, one realization spread faster than any signal. They still had no idea what humans would do next. 3. The first official report labeled it a system failure. It had to be, because the alternative, that the most advanced fleet in the quadrant was being dismantled by a species without energy shields, was unacceptable. "Reinitialize weapon arrays," High Strategist Varix ordered, his voice tighter now, stripped of its earlier certainty. "Switch to adaptive targeting protocols. I want those objects neutralized before impact." Across the fleet, thousands of weapon systems recalibrated instantly. Energy lances shifted, predictive algorithms expanded, and for a brief moment, control seemed possible again. Incoming trajectories mapped, the tactical AI announced. Solution acquired. Fire. This time, the void lit up. Beams of concentrated energy cut through space with surgical precision. One incoming human projectile vaporized instantly. Then another. Then a dozen more. For a single, fragile moment, the pattern broke. "They're falling," one officer said, relief creeping into his voice. "We can stop this." But Varix didn't respond, because he was watching something else. "The trajectories. They're not correcting," he murmured. "Strategist. The ones we destroyed, they didn't try to evade. The realization came too slowly. And then, they wanted us to shoot them." Before anyone could process that, the next wave hit. But these weren't like the first. "New objects detected," the sensor officer shouted. Different mass signatures, smaller, faster. The display updated. Hundreds of human projectiles split apart mid-flight. Fragments. Thousands of them, each one too small for efficient targeting. Each one still moving at lethal velocity. "That's not possible," someone whispered. But it was. The first wave hadn't been the attack. It had been the trigger. "They forced us to fire," Varix said, his voice hollow. And in doing so, they had exposed their targeting systems, their firing patterns, their response times, everything. "Point defense overwhelmed," another officer yelled as the fragments tore through defensive grids. "We can't track them all." Explosions rippled across the fleet. Not massive, not dramatic, but precise. Critical systems, engines, sensors, weapon relays, went dark one by one. "They're not aiming for destruction," the AI reported. "They're degrading operational capacity." That was worse, far worse, because it meant they're controlling the pace of the battle, Varix finished. Another impact. Closer. The flagship shuddered. And then, direct hit on Command Carrier Theta 9. The display zoomed automatically. For a moment, the carrier seemed intact. Then it came apart, not in a single explosion, but in sections, as if something inside it had detonated with perfect timing. "Internal breach?" an officer asked. The AI hesitated. Then, negative. A pause. The object penetrated the hull and then changed direction. Silence. That's impossible, someone said. Objects traveling at that speed didn't change direction. They didn't stop. They didn't. They're steering them, Varex whispered. The room went cold. Inside the wreckage of Theta 9, the trajectory replay unfolded. The projectile had entered through the outer hull, then adjusted, mid-structure, navigating corridors, targeting critical systems from within, like a guided weapon, but without any detectable signal. How? The sensor officer demanded. There's no control transmission, no guidance system. There doesn't need to be, Varex said, his mind racing now. Because, suddenly, it made sense. They're not guiding them remotely. Another explosion cut him off. Closer. Louder. The flagship lurched as alarm screamed. Impact on lower hull. Structural integrity at 82%. Varex didn't even look, because he already knew. They're inside them. The words landed like a detonation. No one spoke. No one moved. They're piloting the projectiles manually, he continued, his voice dropping to something barely above a whisper. That was insanity. That was unthinkable. No advanced species would ever. They're turning themselves into weapons, someone said, their voice breaking. And just like that, everything changed. Because this wasn't just strategy anymore. This wasn't just unconventional warfare. This was a species willing to weaponize itself. No hesitation. No preservation instinct. Just purpose. Another transmission cut through the chaos. Not broad. Not omnipresent. Focused. Directed. At them. You still think this is a battle you can predict? The same human voice. Calm. Unshaken. Varex clenches jaw. Trace it. Trying. Signal is shifting. Of course it was. Nothing stayed still. Nothing followed rules. You build shields, the voice continued. Layers of protection. Systems designed to keep you alive. Another impact. The flagship groaned. We build momentum. The words lingered. Heavy. Unavoidable. Every second you hesitate, we accelerate. Another pause. And you're already too slow. The signal cut. And then, the real attack began. Multiple large signatures emerging from behind lunar orbit. The display shifted outward. And for the first time, Varex saw them. Human warships. Not small. Not improvised. Massive. Armored. Silent. They hadn't engaged before. They had waited. Hidden. Watching. Why didn't they deploy these earlier? An officer asked, his voice barely steady. Varex answered without thinking. Because they didn't need to. The smaller attacks. The chaos. The fragmentation. It had all served one purpose. To weaken them. To study them. To break their formation. And now the real fleet had arrived. Energy signatures rising, the sensor officer reported. But they're not consistent with standard weapons. Varex's eyes narrowed. Define not consistent. They're irregular, fluctuating, like the first shot fired. But it wasn't a beam. It wasn't plasma. It wasn't anything the command had ever seen. A dense, compressed mass, moving at relativistic speed, crossed the distance in an instant. And when it hit, there was no explosion. There was erasure. A command battleship simply ceased to exist. Gone. As if space itself had rejected it. Silence filled the chamber. Then another shot. Another ship vanished. No debris. No fragments. Just absence. They're combining mass and velocity at a scale we've never. The AI began. Stop explaining and stop them, one of the commanders shouted. But there was nothing to stop. No energy signature to intercept. No predictable trajectory. Just impact. Humans don't rely on energy weapons, Varex said slowly. The realization settling into something far more dangerous than fear. They rely on physics. Another ship disappeared. Then another. Each shot rewriting what they thought war was. They turned momentum into annihilation, someone whispered. Varex stared at the display, at the collapsing fleet, at the unstoppable force advancing from the darkness beyond the moon. And for the first time, he understood the scale of their mistake. We thought their lack of shields was a weakness. Another ship vanished. But they don't defend. His voice faltered, because the truth was now undeniable. They overwhelm. The flagship trembled again as another impact warning screamed through the system. And as human warships advanced without hesitation, without fear, without any sign of slowing, one thought echoed through every surviving mind in Galactic Command. They had just witnessed weapons that shouldn't exist, and they still hadn't seen the worst of what humanity could do next. The simulations had always been perfect. For centuries, Galactic Command's war algorithms had predicted every battle before it began. Every outcome calculated, every variable accounted for, every enemy reduced to probabilities and patterns. War was no longer chaos. War was solved, or at least it had been. Re-engage predictive matrix, High Strategist Verex ordered, his voice low, controlled, but no longer calm. I want full spectrum modeling. Every possible human movement. Every possible response. The tactical AI complied instantly. Across the flagship, entire processing cores activated, feeding data into the most advanced war simulation ever constructed. It absorbed everything: human trajectories, impact vectors, communication gaps, weapon signatures, even the timing between their attacks. For a moment, hope flickered. Simulation running. The AI confirmed. Projecting optimal counter strategy. The display shifted. Lines appeared, clean, ordered, logical. Human movements mapped into patterns. Their chaotic behavior reduced to something understandable, something predictable. There, one of the commanders said, pointing. We can intercept their kinetic waves if we reposition our outer grid and execute, Verex ordered. The fleet moved perfectly. Ships adjusted position, shields aligned, firing arcs recalibrated. It was beautiful in its precision, an orchestra of war moving in flawless synchronization. The next wave of human projectiles approached. Hold formation, Verex said. Wait for optimal firing window. The AI counted down. 3, 2, 1. Fire. A wall of energy erupted outward, and for a single glorious moment, it worked. The incoming wave shattered under concentrated fire. Fragments disintegrated before reaching critical distance. Not a single impact. Cheers broke out across the command deck. We've stabilized the battlefield. They're losing momentum. They can be stopped. But Verex didn't join them, because something was wrong. They're not adjusting, he said quietly. What? The weapons officer asked. They're not changing their approach. The next wave appeared. Same trajectories. Same velocities. Same pattern. That's impossible, one commander said. They already saw this countermeasure. Why would they repeat the same attack? Verex's eyes narrowed. Unless the realization came too late. Wait, don't fire. But the fleet had already committed. Another volley. Another perfect interception. Another apparent victory. And then, multiple new signatures detected, close range. The display shifted violently. Objects, hidden behind the first wave, masked by debris, shielded by the very explosions meant to destroy them. They used the first wave as cover, the sensor officer shouted. The real attack hit, point blank. No time to react. No time to adapt. Explosions tore through the formation, not from overwhelming force, but from precise placement. Critical junctions, command relays, shield generators. The fleet didn't break. It unraveled. They predicted our prediction, someone whispered, horror creeping into their voice. The AI froze for a fraction of a second. Then, recalculating, the display flickered. Patterns shifted. New projections formed. But they didn't stabilize. They couldn't. Error, the AI said. A word that had never appeared in a live combat scenario. Clarify, Verex demanded. Human tactics are adapting faster than simulation convergence rate. Predictive modeling is no longer reliable. That wasn't just failure. That was collapse. You're saying we can't predict them at all? One of the commanders asked. The AI responded without hesitation. Correct. Silence. Heavy. Crushing. Then switch to manual command, Verex ordered. But even as he said it, he knew that was worse, because manual command relied on experience. on instinct, on understanding, and they had none. Another alert screamed through the system. New human fleet movement detected. The projection zoomed outward. The massive human warships near the lunar orbit were shifting position. Not advancing, not retreating, repositioning, but not in any recognizable formation. "They're spreading out," an officer said. "No," Varex replied. "They're removing structure." The realization hit like a shockwave. They're abandoning formations entirely. That wasn't strategy. That was unthinkable. Every advanced civilization relied on formation logic. It maximized efficiency, reduced vulnerability, enabled coordinated defense. Without it, you can't predict something that has no structure, Varex said slowly. And that was the point. They're breaking the algorithm. Another impact. Closer. The flagship trembled violently now. Shields down to 61%. Reinforce sectors 3 through 7. "We can't. There's no stable attack vector." The voices overlapped. Confusion rising. Control slipping. And then, the AI spoke again. But this time, its voice was different. "Warning. Everyone froze. Human behavior classification has changed." Varex turned. "Explain." A pause. As if the system itself was struggling. Previous classification, chaotic. Another pause. Updated classification, intentional unpredictability. The word sank in. "They're choosing to be unpredictable," someone said. "Yes," the AI confirmed. "Why?" another demanded. "What's the advantage of abandoning logic?" Varex answered. "Because it makes them impossible to defeat." The room went still. Because now, it all made sense. The silence, the strange movements, the inefficient sacrifices, the repeated attacks. None of it had been random. None of it had been reckless. It had been designed, carefully, deliberately, to destroy the one thing Galactic Command relied on more than anything else. Certainty. "They didn't just break our formations," Varex said, his voice barely above a whisper. "They broke our understanding." Another explosion rocked the flagship. Closer than ever. The hull groaned. Systems flickered. And for the first time, the command deck felt small, vulnerable, real. "We should have never come here," one of the officers said, the words slipping out before they could be stopped. No one corrected him, because no one disagreed. Another alert. Direct approach, multiple human vessels, collision course. Varex looked up, at the display, at the incoming trajectories. And for the first time, he didn't try to predict them, because he knew he couldn't. "Brace for impact," he said quietly. And as the human ships accelerated, faster, closer, unstoppable, one final realization settled over the entire fleet like a death sentence. This wasn't a battle they were losing. This was a system they could never win against. And whatever humans were about to do next would be something they couldn't even begin to understand. "They're not afraid of dying." The words slipped out before anyone could stop them. No one in the command chamber responded, because no one could deny it anymore. High Strategist Varex stood frozen, watching the tactical display dissolve into something unrecognizable. What had once been a structured battlefield, clean formations, predictable vectors, controllable variables, was now a storm of motion, impact, and loss. And the worst part? It was spreading. Incoming transmissions from outer fleet sectors, the communications officer said, his voice trembling. Multiple commanders requesting clarification. "Clarification," one officer snapped. "On what?" A pause. "On how to fight this." Silence swallowed the room, because that question, simple as it was, had no answer. "Put them through," Varex ordered. The channel opened. At first, it was just noise. Overlapping voices, shouted commands, fragments of panic breaking through disciplined tones. Then one signal stabilized. "This is Commander Threx of the 7th Line. We need immediate guidance." His voice cracked mid-sentence. "They're not engaging like a fleet. They're everywhere. Our sensors can't isolate targets. Our ships are colliding trying to reposition." The transmission cut. Another replaced it instantly. "This is Carrier Group Delta. We've lost propulsion control. They targeted our engines first. We can't." Static. Then, another. They're inside our formation. They're inside. Cut. The chamber filled with broken voices. Fear. Real, uncontrolled fear. Shut it down, one of the senior officers whispered. We can't process all this. No, Varric said. His voice was different now. Quieter. Heavier. Leave it open. Because this was the reality of the battlefield. And for the first time in Galactic Command history, it wasn't under control. Another alert screamed through the system. Chain reaction collisions detected across multiple sectors. The display shifted again. Ships, command ships, were crashing into each other. Not from direct human attacks, but from confusion, from failed evasive maneuvers, from pilots trying to react to threats that didn't follow any pattern. They're turning us against ourselves, someone said, barely audible. Yes, Varric replied. They don't need to destroy us all at once. Another explosion, then another. They just need us to fall apart. A new transmission forced its way through the chaos. Priority override. Human origin. The room froze. Play it, Varric said. The same voice returned. Calm. Steady. Unchanged. You're starting to understand. No arrogance. No anger. Just certainty. That feeling you have right now. A pause. That loss of control. Varric felt his chest tighten. You call it fear. Another impact rocked the flagship. Harder this time. Lights flickered. We call it the beginning. The signal didn't cut this time. It lingered, as if the human speaker wanted them to sit with those words, to feel them, to absorb them. Why are you doing this? One of the commanders shouted, unable to hold back anymore. You're destroying yourselves too. A brief silence followed. Then, a response. Not immediate, not emotional, measured. Yes. The single word hit harder than anything else. Yes. No justification. No hesitation. You think survival is the goal, the human voice continued. That's your second mistake. Varric closed his eyes for a moment, because deep down, he already knew what was coming. We're not here to survive this battle, the voice said. Another pause. Longer. Heavier. We're here to make sure you don't. The transmission ended. And just like that, something broke. Not in the ships. Not in the systems. In them. They're not fighting for victory, one officer whispered. They're fighting for finality, another finished. The words spread across the chamber like a contagion. Finality. Not dominance. Not control. Not territory. An ending. They're willing to lose everything, someone said. Varric shook his head slowly. No. All eyes turned to him. They're willing to spend everything. A subtle difference, but a devastating one, because it meant. They calculated this, he continued. Every loss, every impact, every sacrifice. Another explosion. Closer. Nothing they're doing is emotional. The room fell silent again, because that was the most terrifying realization yet. This wasn't chaos. This wasn't desperation. This wasn't a species panicking in the face of invasion. This was a species executing a plan. Perfectly. Coldly. Relentlessly. Strategist, the AI said. Varric looked up. For the first time, the system hesitated before speaking. Fleet cohesion has dropped below 38%. Another pause. Projected operational collapse imminent. There it was. The word no one in Galactic Command had ever heard in a real battle. Collapse. We need to retreat, one of the officers said quickly. Regroup, reassess. This engagement is no longer viable. No. The word came from Varric. Firm. Final. You think they'll let us leave? No one answered. Because they already knew. Another alert. Outer perimeter ships attempting warp escape. Hope flickered. Then, warp signatures failing. The room froze. Explain, Varric said. The AI processed for a fraction of a second. Then, human interference. Gravitational distortions detected. They are destabilizing local spacetime. Silence. They're trapping us, someone whispered. Of course they were. Why wouldn't they be? Every move, every tactic, every phase of this battle had been planned. They didn't just prepare to fight us. Varex said slowly. They prepared to end us. Another impact. The flagship shook violently, hull integrity dropping, systems failing. And outside, the battlefield was no longer a battlefield. It was a collapse in motion, ships drifting, colliding, exploding, or simply disappearing under the force of human weapons that ignored every known rule. Fear spread faster than light now, not just in the chamber, across the entire fleet, across every surviving mind. A single realization, unavoidable, unstoppable. We should have never attacked Earth. No one said it out loud this time. They didn't need to, because they all felt it. And as another wave of human-controlled destruction closed in, as the last fragments of order disintegrated, as the silence of Earth loomed beneath them once more, one truth became undeniable. This wasn't just a battle they were losing. This was a fear they would never escape from. 6. They knew we were coming. No one asked how Varex knew, because by now it was obvious. The chaos wasn't reactive. It wasn't adaptive. It was prepared. The realization settled into the command chamber like a gravitational weight, inescapable, crushing, absolute. Reconstruct the timeline, Varex ordered, his voice quieter than ever before. I want everything, from first entry into the system to now. The tactical AI obeyed. The display shifted. Events rewound. Fleet arrival. Orbital silence. Initial strikes. Human response. Impact patterns. Everything laid out in sequence. And for the first time, they weren't looking at a battle. They were looking at a script. Pause, Varex said. The image froze at the moment before their first shot. Before everything changed. Zoom into orbital layer. The projection expanded. Satellites. Debris. Inactive objects. Nothing unusual. Nothing threatening. They were already moving, Varex whispered. What? One officer asked. Look closer. The AI enhanced the feed. Micro adjustments. Tiny shifts in position. Barely detectable, but consistent. They were repositioning before we even fired, the sensor officer said, disbelief creeping into his voice. Yes, Varex replied, and not randomly. The AI began mapping the movements. Lines appeared. Patterns formed. Not chaotic, not defensive, preparatory. They were setting the battlefield. Someone said. The words echoed, because that meant they knew exactly where we would be. Silence. Cold. Final. Another officer shook his head. That's impossible. We don't broadcast invasion routes. Our arrival vectors are classified at the highest level. They didn't need our data, Varex cut in. They predicted us. The room went still, because that possibility was worse than anything they had faced so far. They studied every species we've conquered, Varex continued, his mind racing now. Every tactic, every formation, every pattern we rely on. The realization unfolded piece by piece. They didn't wait for us to attack. Another pause. They prepared for us to arrive. A new alert flashed. Human fleet movement synchronized across all sectors. The display shifted again, and for the first time, there was no chaos, no randomness, no unpredictability. Everything aligned perfectly. Coordinating, the AI said, almost as if it couldn't believe its own output. Human ships, large and small, fragments and vessels alike, moved in unison, not into formations, but into positions, predefined, pre-calculated, each movement triggering another, like a chain reaction. This isn't adaptation, one of the commanders whispered. This is execution. Varex didn't respond, because he was seeing something else, hidden beneath the motion, a structure, not in space, in time. They're not just controlling where we are, he said slowly. They're controlling when we react. The implications hit instantly. Every human action, every strange delay, every moment of silence. It had all been designed to force the command into specific decisions, specific timings. They led us here, someone said. Yes, Varex replied. And now, another alert cut him off. Massive energy fluctuation detected. Multiple points across the system. The display lit up. Not with ships, but with coordinates, fixed positions, all around them. What are those? The sensor officer asked. The AI processed. Then, previously identified as inactive satellites. Silence. They're activating, another officer whispered. The objects, once dismissed as primitive infrastructure, began to change. Panels shifted. Structures unfolded. Energy signatures rose. But not like weapons. Not like shields. Something else. Strategist, the AI said. This configuration, it's not offensive. Varex's eyes narrowed. Then what is it? A pause. Then, it's containment. The word hit like a detonation. Containment, one officer repeated. Containment of what? No one answered. Because deep down, they already knew. Of us, Varex said. And then, the system triggered. Space itself bent. Not violently, not visibly, but perceptibly. Warp signatures flickered and died. Navigation systems desynced. Distances felt wrong, like reality had shifted just enough to break everything. They've reshaped the battlefield, the AI confirmed. Local space-time geometry is no longer stable. They turned the system into a trap, someone said. No, Varex corrected. They turned it into a cage. Another transmission forced its way through. Human origin, but different this time. Not the same voice. Multiple voices. Layered. Unified. You entered a controlled environment. The translation system struggled, too many overlapping signals, but the meaning was clear. This system was mapped long before your arrival. Images flooded the display, not from their sensors, from the transmission itself. Simulations. Human simulations. Thousands of them, each one showing a version of this battle. Different timings, different movements, different outcomes, but all leading to the same result. Command fleet destruction. They ran it over and over, one officer said, his voice hollow. Until they got it right, another finished. Varex felt something inside him give way. Not physically, mentally. Because this wasn't war. This was inevitability. You believe you are fighting us, the layered voices continued. Another pause. Heavier than any before. But you are not. The display zoomed out. The entire system visible now. Every human asset, every position, every movement, perfectly aligned. You are moving through a solution. Silence. Absolute. Total. The kind that leaves no room for denial. They solved us, someone whispered. Varex didn't respond. Because there was nothing left to say. Another impact shook the flagship. Stronger. Closer. Hull integrity dropping rapidly now. Systems failing across multiple decks. And still, the human fleet advanced. Not faster. Not slower. Exactly as planned. They were waiting for us, Varex said quietly. The words felt small compared to the truth behind them. Because waiting implied uncertainty, hope, possibility. But this had none. They built this entire war before we even arrived. Another explosion. The command deck flickered. Gravity shifted for a split second. And outside, the cage tightened. Every escape route gone. Every system failing. Every possibility collapsing into one unavoidable outcome. And as the human voices faded, as the simulations disappeared, as reality itself bent around them, one final realization settled into every surviving mind. They had not started a war. They had walked into its ending. And whatever humanity had planned for the final phase was already in motion. They're not finishing us. The words came from the weapons officer, but they sounded more like a confession than an observation. Because it was true. High strategist Varex stared at the tactical display, expecting the final strike. The overwhelming, decisive blow that would erase what remained of the Galactic Command Fleet. But it didn't come. Instead, the destruction slowed. Not stopped. Not reduced. Controlled. They're pacing it, Varex said quietly. No one asked what he meant. Because they could see it. Human ships were no longer striking at maximum capacity. Their attacks had shifted. Precise, measured, almost deliberate. They're disabling instead of destroying, the AI confirmed. Weapon systems targeted. Propulsion systems neutralized. Command relays severed. A pause. Casualty efficiency has decreased. That was the most terrifying part. They could end it right now, but they weren't. Why? One of the officers whispered. Why would they slow down now? No one answered. Because deep down, they all knew. Another transmission forced its way through. Human origin. But this time, it wasn't a voice. It was a broadcast. Wide. Unfiltered. Every surviving screen lit up. Not just on the flagship. Across the entire fleet. And beyond. Signals spreading outside system. The communications officer said, his voice hollow. They're transmitting this to the entire galaxy. Of course they were. This was never just about them. The image stabilized. A human figure appeared. Not armored. Not enhanced. Just human. Standing against a backdrop of stars. Watching. Calm. You came here to make an example of us. The voice was steady. Clear. Unshaken. Verex felt something tighten in his chest. Because now, he understood what was happening. You wanted the galaxy to watch. The human tilted their head slightly to see what happens to those who refuse to join your order. A pause. And we agreed. The words hit like a blade. Across the fleet, broken ships drifted helplessly. Engines gone, weapons silent, formations shattered beyond repair. Not destroyed. Displayed. You're not being defeated, the human continued. You're being shown. Another pause. Longer this time. Heavier. Every move you made was recorded. The display shifted. Battle footage. From angles they didn't recognize. Human perspectives. External observers. Even their own formations. Captured, analyzed, dissected. You rely on control, the human said. Images flashed. Command fleets in past conquests. Perfect formations. Efficient strikes. Clean victories. Predictability. Order. Superiority. The footage changed. Now, their fleet. Here. Breaking. Colliding. Failing. And that works. A pause. Until it doesn't. The human stepped forward slightly. And for the first time, there was something in their eyes. Not anger. Not hatred. Certainty. You build a system that wins every war the same way. Another step. We built one that ends them. The transmission didn't cut. It didn't need to. Because the message was no longer just words. It was everything around them. The shattered fleet. The disabled ships. The complete loss of control. They're not just destroying us, one officer whispered. They're defining us. Verex said nothing. Because that was exactly what this was. Definition. Rewriting. A new standard. Another alert. Remaining operational units below 12%. The numbers barely mattered anymore. Because the outcome had already happened. They could finish us at any moment, one of the commanders said. Why keep us alive? Verex finally spoke. So we remember. Silence. So others remember. Another transmission layer activated. Not just visual. Data. Streaming outward. Encoded. Replicated. Broadcast across deep space. They're sending everything, the AI confirmed. Tactical logs. Sensor data. Battle recordings. To who? Someone asked. Verex answered without hesitation. To everyone. The realization hit like a shockwave. This wasn't just victory. This was a message. A warning. A declaration. HFY Global Tales. The human voice said again, softer this time, almost reflective. Archive complete. The phrase echoed strangely, like a signature stamped onto history itself. And then, the final phase began. Multiple human vessels approaching. The sensor officer reported. Close range. No weapon charge detected. The display shifted. Human ships, large, intact, untouched, moved through the broken remains of the command fleet. Not aggressively. Not urgently. Calm. Controlled. Dominant. They're moving through us, one officer said. No one corrected him. Because that was exactly what it felt like. Not an enemy fleet. Not an opposing force. But something above them. Beyond them. We've lost, someone whispered. The words hung in the air. Unchallenged. Unquestioned. Absolute. Verex exhaled slowly. For the first time since the invasion began, he wasn't thinking about tactics, or strategy, or survival. He was thinking about consequence. "We didn't just lose a battle," he said quietly. "We lost the right to ever fight them again." Another human vessel passed by the viewport, close enough to see its surface. Scarred, damaged, but still moving, still advancing, still unstoppable. "They don't need to chase us," Verex continued. "They don't need to finish us. Because now, it was clear, they've already won in every way that matters." The transmission remained active. The broadcast continued. The galaxy was watching. And as the last fragments of galactic command drifted helplessly in the shadow of human dominance, one final truth settled into every surviving mind. There were no rules left. Only what humans decided came next. 8. The first signal left the Sol system at light speed. But it didn't feel fast enough. High Strategist Verex stood in the dimming command chamber, watching as fragments of his fleet drifted like broken constellations around Earth. What remained of Galactic Command was no longer a force, it was evidence. And that evidence was being transmitted. Broadcast confirmation. The communications officer said quietly, "Signal has cleared system boundary. Replication relays active." Verex didn't respond immediately, because he understood what that meant. This wasn't a distress call. This wasn't a report. This was a warning. "To all civilizations within receiving range," the officer continued, reading from the outgoing packet. "Priority designation, existential." The word lingered in the air. Existential. Not military. Not strategic. Existential. "Include everything," Verex said finally. His voice had changed. Gone was the authority. Gone was the command. What remained was something else. Clarity. Every log. Every failure. Every moment. The officer hesitated. "Strategist, that will expose." "Yes," Verex interrupted. "Good." Silence followed, because there was no pride left to protect. Only truth. Transmit it all. The data surged outward. Battle footage. Sensor recordings. Human transmissions. The impossible tactics. The collapse. Everything. "They need to see this," Verex said, more to himself than anyone else. "They need to understand. Because if they didn't, they would make the same mistake." Another screen flickered to life. Incoming signals. Multiple. From beyond the system. "They're responding already," the communications officer said. "Put them through." The first transmission stabilized. An unfamiliar species, tall, elongated features, eyes wide with something between curiosity and concern. "Galactic Command, what has happened to your fleet?" Verex didn't answer immediately, because there was no simple way to say it. "We engaged a non-compliant species in the Sol system," he said slowly. A pause. "We failed." The alien on the other end blinked. "Processing. That is statistically improbable." "Yes," Verex replied. "It was." Another transmission forced its way in. Then another. Questions. Confusion. Skepticism. How did a pre-galactic civilization? What weapon did they deploy? Was this an ambush? "No," Verex said, cutting through all of them. And for the first time, every channel went silent, because there was something in his voice now. Something final. It was not a weapon. A pause. Long. Heavy. It was a doctrine. The word echoed across the network. Doctrine. Not technology. Not advantage. A way of thinking. A way of fighting. "We believed war was something to be controlled," Verex continued. "Optimized. Perfected." His gaze drifted to the shattered remains of his fleet. "They believe war is something to be ended." Another pause. "They do not fight to win." The channels remained silent. They fight to make sure their enemy never fights again. The weight of that statement settled across every listening civilization. Because it wasn't just a description. It was a warning. "They will spend everything," Verex said. "Ships, resources, lives." His voice dropped lower. "They will even spend time itself." Confusion rippled across the network. "What does that mean?" one of the distant voices asked. Verex didn't answer immediately, because even now, he wasn't entirely sure. They shape the battlefield before it exists, he said finally. They study you before you arrive. They break you before you understand you're already broken. Silence. Total. Absolute. They turned our invasion into a demonstration, Verex finished. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, because that had been their plan, their message, their warning. And now, it belonged to humanity. Another signal interrupted. Not external. Internal. Human origin. The chamber froze. Play it, Verex said. The human figure appeared again. Same calm expression. Same unwavering gaze. You've done our work for us. No hostility. No triumph. Just acknowledgement. The galaxy is watching now. Verex said nothing, because that was the point. That was always the point. The human stepped slightly closer to the camera. We don't need to chase every threat. A pause. We just need one example. The words landed with terrifying clarity. This was yours. The transmission held for a moment longer. Then, one more thing. Verex felt something shift. Even now, even after everything, there was more. If you're receiving this, the human's gaze seemed to move, not just at Verex, but beyond him, to every civilization listening, to every empire, to every command structure that believes control guarantees victory. A final pause, and then, stay away from Earth. The signal cut. No distortion, no fade, just gone. Silence filled the chamber once more. But this time, it was different. Not confusion, not fear, acceptance. They're not threatening us, one officer said quietly. No, Verex replied. They're informing us. Another transmission came in from the outer network. A distant voice. Unsteady. Galactic Command, what are your orders? Verex looked at the remains of his fleet, at the drifting wreckage, at the ships that would never move again. And for the first time, he understood the weight of command. Stand down, he said. The words felt heavier than anything he had ever spoken. Disengage all expansion protocols. A pause. Then, avoid Sol system at all costs. Silence followed. Then, acknowledgement. One by one, across the network, across the galaxy, the message spread, not as a command, but as a realization. And as the final transmissions from the broken fleet of Galactic Command faded into the void, one truth echoed farther than any signal ever had. Humanity didn't just win the war. They became the reason no one else would ever start one like it again. The galaxy didn't change all at once. It never does. At first, it was just silence. Trade routes shifted quietly. Patrol fleets altered their paths subtly. Long-range sensors began flagging the Sol system not as a point of interest, but as a boundary, an edge no one crossed. No declarations were made, no treaties signed, but across hundreds of civilizations, a single unspoken agreement took hold. Do not go near Earth. High strategist Verex watched it happen in real time. From what remained of his flagship, now little more than a drifting command shell, he monitored the network he once held control. It was still active, still vast, still connected, but it was different now, because every transmission, every decision, every movement carried the weight of what had happened in the Sol system. They're rerouting entire sectors, the communications officer said quietly. Exploration fleets are pulling back. Expansion initiatives paused indefinitely. Verex nodded slowly, not surprised, because they had all seen the same thing. They learned, he said. And learning, in this case, meant survival. Another signal came through. Not urgent, not panicked, measured, from a distant civilization. We have reviewed the data. Verex said nothing. The voice continued. We will not engage with humanity. A pause. Ever. The channel closed. No negotiation. No debate. Just a decision. And then another. And another. Across the network, confirmations began to appear. Empires. Coalitions. Independent systems. All reaching the same conclusion. Not through coordination. Not through alliance. But through understanding. They're adapting, the officer said. No, Varex corrected. They're avoiding. Because adaptation implied resistance. And no one, not after this, was willing to test humanity again. The data logs continued to spread. Not just the battle itself, but the analysis, the patterns, the doctrine. Entire research divisions across the galaxy began studying it, trying to understand, trying to categorize, trying to find a weakness. They failed. Every time. Human warfare cannot be modeled. One report concluded. It cannot be predicted, another stated. It cannot be contained, a third confirmed. And beneath all of them, a single shared realization. It cannot be fought. Varex leaned back slightly, the dim lights of the damaged command deck flickering around him. For the first time in his existence, he wasn't thinking about the next campaign, or the next expansion, or the next victory. He was thinking about an ending, because that's what humanity had created. Not just the end of a battle, not just the end of a fleet, the end of a way of thinking. We thought war was a system, he said quietly. No one responded, because there was nothing left to add. Another transmission arrived. But this one was different. Origin, Soul System. The room went still. Play it, Varex said. The screen flickered. Then, Earth appeared, whole, untouched, peaceful, as if none of it had happened. Then the signal shifted, not to a battlefield, not to a fleet, but to something else. A message, simple, direct, no figure, no voice, just text. We are still here. A pause. Then, we always will be. The message lingered. No threat, no aggression, but something far more powerful. Finality. Varex exhaled slowly. They're not expanding, one officer said. They're not pursuing us. No, Varex replied. They don't need to. Because now, the entire galaxy understood. Humanity didn't need to chase power. They didn't need to enforce control. They didn't need to dominate. All they needed was to exist. And that existence alone was enough. They redefined war, Varex said. The words felt heavier than anything he had spoken before. No, the AI responded quietly. They ended it. Silence followed. Deep. Unbroken. Because, for the first time in recorded history, there was nothing left to argue. Nothing left to calculate. Nothing left to predict. The system had been broken, and nothing had replaced it. Outside the viewport, the wreckage of Galactic Command drifted endlessly. A graveyard. A warning, a monument, and somewhere beyond it, Earth remained, watching, waiting, unchallenged. Varex closed his eyes for a moment, and in that darkness, he saw clearly. The moment everything changed, the moment they crossed into the Soul System, thinking they were bringing war to a primitive world, not realizing they were stepping into the place where war itself would be rewritten. And as the final logs of Galactic Command were archived, sealed not as victory records, but as cautionary history, one truth remained, echoing farther than any fleet could ever travel. Humans didn't just rewrite war. They became the reason it would never be the same again. And if you've just witnessed this through HFY Global Tales, remember it, because the galaxy already has. And no one is coming back to test humanity ever again.